Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Silver Lyming. I'm super excited as I have another fabulous guest with me today. I'd like to welcome Gigi Thibodeau to our show. And I met you through social media as well. That's one of, I think, the best parts of this sickness is that we get to meet great people like you and spend some time learning about each other. I know you are, as I had said, more of a creative art soul, that you're a writer and a teacher, and also someone who has been brought into this world of Lyme disease and tick-borne illness. So if you don't mind, could you please share a little bit more about who you are and your story with Lyme and tick-borne illness?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Anne. It's really good to be here. It's good to be able to talk face to face because we've chatted so much over the years. So it's really good to connect like this. So yeah, oh, my cat might join me while I'm talking.
Great.
When he might just, actually, he wants to come up. So I'm just going to let him because I don't want him to cry.
Hey, baby.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've had Lyme well, I don't know how long I've had Lyme. Like many people, I have no idea when I got sick or when I contracted it. I know when I started to feel sick. So that's been about 5.5 years. And then I think about 5 years, well, exactly 5 years ago, July 4th, I had a kind of tipping point event. And then I started to get really sick. So it's been, 5 to 5.5 years of symptoms, but I think I actually probably have had Lyme a lot longer, like so many people. And I think that's always surprising to people because they're like, don't you know when you got it? Not necessarily, no. So I don't know if I got it from a tick or if I got it from, a flea or a mosquito. I have no idea how I got it. I never had a rash or anything like that. So all of my symptoms came out much later. I suspect I had it for quite a while because just little things that would happen, little symptoms here and there over the few years before that. So I don't really know though when it started, but it really changed my life. It rocked my world. And I didn't, my symptoms were extremely neurological almost from the beginning. And in particular, the hardest symptom I had then and still now was vestibular issues. So lots of vertigo and dizziness, pretty much 24/7. So I think that that's been the biggest challenge, and it completely changed everything. I was a writer and an English professor, and I had to kind of gradually give all of that up because I couldn't read or write anymore. So it was a really big change. And I was misdiagnosed and sent around on a wild goose chase for a few years. I think I was almost free. I think I was about 2.5 years into the journey before I got my diagnosis. So shorter than some, but still way too long, you know? Yeah. And it was only because I had this amazing osteopath that I went to see because I couldn't stay awake anymore. In addition to all these symptoms kept like piling on while I was getting misdiagnosis after misdiagnosis. And I finally went to this man and said, I can't even stay awake anymore. What is going on with me? And he literally looked at me and said, you have Lyme disease. I said, oh, I've been tested. I don't have Lyme. They told me last year I don't have Lyme. He said, you had the typical CDC testing, didn't you? And I said, I didn't even know what that meant at the time. I did not even know. So he said, I'm going to get you tested properly. And he said, and he started listing all these other diseases. And of course I knew nothing, I knew nothing about that. I knew nothing about Lyme, let alone about all the co-infections. So he said, I think you also have, and he started listing, Babesia and Bartonella and et cetera, reactivated Epstein-Barr. And so he got me tested for all the things, mycotoxins, heavy metals, and everything. I actually vividly remember finding out because it was the first week of COVID lockdown, like the big lockdown, the whole country, everybody was like under lockdown. So I couldn't see him in person. I saw him in a call like this, and he sat there just going through my test results. I hadn't seen them yet. He just was reading them off to me on a screen. Totally surreal. And at the time, though, I think like so many people, I was actually excited to get a diagnosis, right? I was actually like, oh, thank God. Now I know I have. I'm not crazy because I'd had so many doctors, as so many of us had, tell me it was anxiety. It was all in my head. I had, various other things that usually came down to, you just need to calm down, lady, and do some more meditation. And I was like, and why would I have neuropathy because of that? Like, I was trying to figure out, how did I go from being like this healthy, happy, normal person who was, by normal, I just mean healthy. I don't like the word normal. So but anyway, this happy, healthy person who was one day kayaking and the next day completely incapacitated. How does that happen from anxiety? So I was just happy to get the diagnoses. And I thought, okay, now I can do something. And true, now I could do something, but what I'd have to do, I had no idea. So that's kind of how it all started for me and how I kind of began to understand that I'm on a journey. I remember him saying that first week, you are starting on a journey right now. Like, I'm like, but I've been sick for so long already. And he's like, yeah, but you're just starting. You haven't done anything yet. You're just starting. And he said, the classic, Lyme is not a sprint. It's a marathon. You're about to start a marathon. And one other thing he said to me that's always, he was a kind man, and I think he meant well, but, and he is a kind man, he's still alive, but, it was a painful thing to hear, and it's something I would not say to someone else. He said to me, I understand why you said it. He said, try, one thing I want you to try to do as you go on this journey is try not to talk about your disease a lot to other people. And I was like, why? He said, because you'll lose everyone. He said, you'll lose everyone. No one wants to hear about this disease. You're just going to lose everyone if you talk about it. He said, so you need to just like find a way to just deal, get a good therapist and just deal. And I was like, well, I have a good therapist already because I've already been dealing. But that piece of advice, while I understand it, because he's right, you do lose a lot of people. I think it's a horrible thing to say to somebody.
Yes.
Because we need to talk about this, which is why I'm so grateful that you're doing this series. We need to talk about this. People need to hear the stories and take it seriously.
Tremendously, because there's too many people like you, me, we've had our lives completely redone against our better choices and wishes. Like, you're out kayaking, you're doing something healthy for yourself. Let's go kayaking and enjoy nature and spend. And next thing you know, you're completely incapacitated. Like, people definitely need to hear about this, and we definitely need to talk about it. And I think coming from where I was, I didn't talk about it for a long time because they kept telling me there was nothing wrong with me. And so I just stopped talking about it. But that nearly killed me too, because I felt like a crazy person just living in my own space, not being able to stay awake or think or remember people's names, or, and I just thought God made me like a broken, defective human. So that's very detrimental to people's health as well.
You turn it in on this kind of blame of self instead of voicing the incredible things you're going through.
It's really embarrassed to talk about it because they tell you there's nothing wrong with you, so you're like,
I still get embarrassed sometimes. I still have that. I have moments when I'm talking to people who don't know, who don't understand, and they'll look at me, roll their eyes, or look at me like I have two heads. And I still will have these moments of embarrassment. And then I have to like kind of I have to talk myself through it and go, no, girlfriend, you have every right to talk about this and every right to say this. And not only do you have the right, you have the obligation, because I don't want anyone else going through this. And I know you don't either. Like, the fight for me and the fight for so many, that's the thing the fight for so many people in the Lyme community, why I love this community so much is it's never about, I'm going to get better. Well, it is sometimes maybe, but I think the majority of people I meet who've been sick a long time, they want to get better so they can help other people get better, and they can help other people not get this disease to begin with. And or these diseases, I should say, this constellation of diseases that we kind of lump under Lyme disease. I think that is a tremendous part of, it's one of the gifts of this disease, right? Like, you start to meet other people who go, this can't keep happening. We've got to do something. And there's so many people fighting the fight. And that's why we're making progress, is because of patience. And I think a handful of really brave doctors.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why I just watched The Quiet Epidemic. Like, I try not to do these things to myself because I know I already know too much, and I know, and then you watch that and it's like 500,000 people a year are infected with this in the United States. And it's like, dude, do people really get this? Like, 500,000 people, that's a lot of people every year being infected. And for us to not really talk about it, not really acknowledge it, not really know how to treat it, not really know what to do with it, like we've got some major problems coming out of this. And it's a little bit, it is very important for us to speak up. And I think hopefully it's coming to a point where it's shifting now more into the public eye with these movies coming.
Definitely. And even news stories, like you're seeing it in the news now, and they're doing like, it's tick season. And I always want to say, it's always tick season. But, but it's exciting that they're doing it, that they're talking about it, and they're saying ways to protect your kids and your pets and yourself. And, because I know I get more and more messages every week now. I get messages sometimes every day, especially during the peak seasons. People saying, I got bitten by a tick. What do I do? My daughter has, her doctor says she doesn't have Lyme, but I think she might. What do I do? And I think patients are the ones who are going, it's a grassroots thing where we're going, okay, here's some places you can look. Here's Global Lyme Alliance. Here's Project Lyme. Like, we're giving them resources so they know where to go and find a doctor, how to find proper testing, and things that we didn't have.
Yes.
Things we did not have. And I want to make sure everybody has it. And I don't want to see another child with this disease. Another child born with it, another mother who doesn't know she has Lyme giving birth to a child with Lyme. Like, I don't want to see it. I think Quiet Epidemic was a great film. It really was. I mean, we've had some really good Lyme documentaries, but I think that's one of the best ones for sure.
Yes, it was a good one. And I feel like I've been getting referrals to watch or recommendations to watch You're Not Sick, or I'm Not Sick, I'm Crazy.
I just watched it like a couple weeks ago.
How was it?
It's very good. I think it's cool because if you could see those two films side by side, you get a even more complete picture. I don't think either one of them alone, it can't. It doesn't do everything. I think I'm Not Sick, I'm Crazy looks at some interesting stories. The only, I'll say the one issue I have, I want to see more in a film like that of what people are going through when they're in the midst of the disease, because a lot of it was people when they were a little bit further along, or it was talking about it, but it wasn't showing it as much as I would have liked to have seen. So I think it's a really good film, and I'm so glad it was made. I think it's important. I just want to see more of, I want people to understand when you're going through it, what it actually is like. If you have something like neurological Lyme or Lyme carditis or something like that, you are completely incapacitated. And I don't think people understand, even people who are maybe close to us, I don't think they understand what it means to lie in bed day after day, or sit in a chair or on a sofa day after day, whatever you're capable of, and literally not be able to function, sometimes not be able to speak, or like you were saying, remember someone's names, remember sometimes your own name, or like where you are in space, or where you are, if you take a trip somewhere, you don't know where you are, getting lost, not being able to function, read books, nothing, just all these things that we take for granted as basic life skills. Take a shower. It's a good week when you can take a shower and like dress yourself. It's a good week.
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing. And I think people have no idea what that means. And I wouldn't have either. I didn't either. This isn't a like pointing fingers at people who don't have Lyme. Could they?
No.
So that's why these films, all of them are so important, and I'm so grateful that people made them.
Yes, very much so. And also, I mean, I think that touches on partially why, in particular, it's critical to have people like you on the show, is again, to see a little bit more about what things look like maybe in the middle. Because, when I first started connecting with you and watching you, you were definitely very bedridden.
Yeah,
to
totally.
see you sitting up right now and to hear the things that you've been able to accomplish is just, don't do that, because I'll do that. I'm just so thankful, Gigi, that you're to the point that you're at. And I really do feel that it's important to acknowledge what you've gone through, where you've come from, where you're at. And if you could talk a little bit more about where you are now presently in your journey, because you've made such progress. But I know you're not quite where you want to be fully to yet. And so if you could just share a little bit more about that, please, that'd be awesome.
I will try.
Yes.
Sitting up is amazing. And it is a very new thing for me to be sitting up and moving around in the world at all. And it's not every day. But I have made some big improvements, mostly in the last 6 months. And I have to say, I just wanted to say that those improvements came, I think it's a combination. There's no, as we all have learned, those of us with long-term Lyme, late stage Lyme, chronic Lyme, whatever we want to call it, it has many names, but it's all the same, right? I think we have to learn that there's no silver bullet, and there's no one way. There's no one way of approaching this, and there's no, for as many people as there are who have Lyme, that's how many kinds of experiences with Lyme there are, because it's so multifaceted, depending on like what co-infections you have, what trauma and other things you had before you had Lyme. So we're all bringing different things to the table when we get this disease or these diseases, these co-infections. So I just want to say that too, because the reason I mention it is that once you start treatment, there's often a sort of like standard treatment that a lot of Lyme docs want to give you. And a lot of Lyme docs do that with really good intentions, because they're the doctors who, the Lyme literate doctors, are the ones who are helping us. But I think a lot of us have to fight to find our own healing modalities, be they spiritual, energetic, or also maybe medical, but maybe a little bit alternative, a little bit surprising to allopathic doctors and even sometimes to Lyme doctors. So a lot of us are doing things that are a little bit outside of maybe way outside of the mainstream. So that's what I wanted to mention, is that I had to kind of go beyond doing antibiotics and herbs, which was important for me in the early days. It definitely helped me. Maybe I think it kept me from getting even sicker, but it wasn't moving me forward. Those things alone were not moving me forward. And I was also doing neural retraining. I was doing like brain retraining. I was doing a lot of different pieces. I was also doing therapies to help with my vestibular stuff. But I had to go, you know what, I'm going to try something else. And so I started trying other therapies. And I just wanted to mention that because I think it's scary to kind of go against maybe what your doctors that you have worked with and that you trust want you to do. So I did. I went against it, what everybody's saying to do. And I started doing ozone therapy. And then I was like really wild and crazy and started going, I said, I'm going to fly to another country and I'm going to try hyperthermia. And I was doing hyperbaric therapies and I was doing all these other treatments, and hyperthermia and stem cells, and hyperthermia and stem cells for me in my particular case really helped me. I didn't think they were going to heal me, and they didn't. They haven't yet. But what they've done is help move me forward. That, and I also had to leave mold. I had to leave a house that was water damaged. It was my dream house. It was a beautiful house, but it was old and water damaged, and it was keeping me sick. We tried to remediate it twice. And I think some people don't know this. I didn't know this about Lyme, that things like mold can keep you really, really sick. You become so sensitive to all toxins and all things. And so I was one of those people who got really, really mold sick. And so I had to leave my house and try all these alternative therapies. And so in this year of doing that's what I've done over the past year, left my home, left my belongings, started all these therapies, and I've started to make changes. So here I am right now. I also got COVID when I got back from treatment in Mexico, which was, I didn't get it right away, but I got it like 6 weeks out. So that was pretty devastating because I came back in February from Mexico. I was there for 3 weeks, and they told me after I tried all these therapies there, they said, you're going to go home and feel really bad for at least 6 weeks. So just be prepared, right? And I was like, okay, there was no way to be prepared for how sick I was. I was so sick. But I also was trusting in my doctors because they had been amazing. And I started to get better. And I got COVID, but even with COVID, I could feel that underneath the COVID, I could feel I was getting better. I started getting energy. At the cellular level, I could feel my mitochondria going, we want to do this, like we're fighting, And so, yeah, that's what happened. And I've been ever since then, like the last couple of months, just getting a little more energy, a little more ability, having mornings where I'm like doing stuff. So it's just been it's very gradual. And I would say to anybody who's in the middle of the fight and who's not making like massive improvements, because I don't think it works that way for most people. It's not like you get this miraculous treatment and the next day you wake up and you're doing jumping jacks and, having a party. I think for most people it is really gradual. So I think for anyone who's doing this, keep a journal. keep a journal. I literally jot down every day, like the weather, because weather has a huge, as we know, weather has a huge impact on us. So I jot down the weather. I jot down my vitals when I think of it. So if I don't, it's no big deal, but I try to jot down my vitals. I'll jot down like my meals that day. And then I'll just jot down like how I'm feeling and what's good, what's changed. And I think that's been really helpful because it's helped me on days when I couldn't see it clearly. I can look back and go, that was the first day that I was able to stand and do the dishes, like from start to finish in 5 years. And at the time it was like, oh, cool, I'm doing the dishes. But it wasn't until a few days later, I was like, wait a minute, like that's a huge thing. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now, is every day is me kind of noticing, like today's a little bit rougher, but I've had a couple of really good days this week. So I'm noticing those good days. And then on the rougher days, I'm like, yeah, but you just had 2 better days. Tomorrow could be a really good day. Who knows what's going to happen? Let's just be present and let's just accept where we are and keep going. Just keep going, see where it takes us.
That's right. And I think that's fantastic that you figured out a way to help encourage yourself along, because sometimes the physical changes that are manifesting are not super evident.
No.
Like it's not like, oh, all of a sudden I'm perfect again.
It is great. Look at me, I'm writing. Yeah, it's not like that. And also, I this is important too. While some of those good things are happening, sometimes other things get worse for a while. And that's key, because as you're peeling away layers, so as you get, if one of us has like Lyme disease, we usually also have Bartonella, Babesiosis. We've got a bunch of other things, maybe a reactivated Epstein-Barr, whatever else. We've got some stuff. We've got a few things to deal with, mycoplasma. And as we peel away those layers of sickness, of dis-ease, of all those poisons in our body, mold, all that stuff, other things emerge because there's room now for them. So, I was killing a lot of Lyme when I went to Mexico. I was doing hypothermia specifically to kill a lot of Lyme disease because I had several types of Lyme, several different strains of it. And it was really hard to keep going without getting rid of some of them. So when I did that, fantastic, right? But it meant that there's room for other things to start to thrive. And then so you have to come back with a game plan. And I did. I had a great team. So I came back with a game plan to hit the ground running and really not stop the fight. And that's key, because there's layers of this and we got to go through. It's like an archaeological dig. We got to just keep digging. We got to keep going down deeper.
That's right. I often picture like a lot of layers of static, and you finally grab one and you can get it off you, but there's still more, and you just got to go back and find the other static, but until you can then you finally get it all smooth again.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Going. But
that's a great way of picturing it. I think we have to have those images so that we can actually see it happening as we keep track, as we either journal it or we keep track. For me, I have to get it in on paper, because now that's another thing. Even the act of journaling, I could not do that. So a year and a half ago, I couldn't do that. So now I can write in a journal, and that's that in itself. You've got to notice it. You've got to notice all of those things. But I love that image of the static and the smoothing out of the whole. It's beautiful.
That's always, for whatever reason, that's always what I picture. And so I'm glad that works maybe for you too.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Something else that you made me think about, if people aren't necessarily into journaling, you have such a beautiful mind and good vocabulary and things, and I guess you should be writing and doing all these things. For people who aren't necessarily that gung-ho about that stuff, although there's so much healing that can come out of just the process of writing. You can just do like a 1 to 10 every day.
Absolutely.
And just a quick little number. That's kind of what I would do sometimes in my journal. Just throw like a number down of what I felt like today was a 5, today was a 10, today, and then I could gradually see that way too.
I love that. And actually, I'm going to add on to that. I'm going to piggyback on that too. We have all these good ideas for this, because if you're in a place where I was for a long time, and maybe you too, I couldn't write. Mm-hmm. So if you can look at images, if that's okay for you, because I think a lot of people don't realize is with Lyme, you get very weird eye sensitivity, a lot of motion, like a lot of weird stuff happens with your eyes. So for some of us, it's tough to do these things. But if you're in a place right now where you can do visual stuff, make vision boards, cut out, make collages, whatever like visual thing you want to do that represents where you are that day is fantastic, because you can make pages, get a blank notebook and just make pages. And it might even just be one image. You find a magazine and you pick one image from it, and it's maybe a picture of like, I don't know, a really angry bulldog or something, you know.
I'm picturing like hell. Yeah.
You're like, this is me today. I'm an angry bulldog. And then the next day, maybe it's a sunflower or, you know, whatever it is that day. Like, just let it be.
Yeah. Let the imagery speak for you, and colors and stuff kind of guide more of your feeling that day. I like that a lot too.
Yeah.
Because it's important. You know, you can get lost in there, and to find your way out and to acknowledge the little wins that you're having. Yeah. And again, people take these things for granted, and it's like somebody listening from the outside, oh, she can't write, she can't what? And it's like, your brain is broken. It's not working.
It's on fire. It's full of inflammation. It's not working. You can look at people sometimes and not know who they are, and people don't understand that. And so for people who are in that place right now, if anyone's watching this, we've been there. We know that feeling, and it's something that you've got to. This is the hardest thing. You have to find a way to know that you're still there. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's really easy to think the disease starts to take over and trick you and play with you, or the diseases start to play with your brain and make you feel like you're not you anymore, that you're not still there, that they're all that matters. And I know that sounds probably like the ravings of a lunatic to say that, but it's so true. Oh my gosh. The number of times when I felt like I no longer existed, it was just disease. And I've heard so many Lyme patients say that to me this week. I've had some people say that to me who are in a really tough space. And I think all we can keep saying to each other is, you are not only still there, you are amazing in there. You're there. It's just, we got to pull that static. We got to get, I love that image. You know, we've got to find where you still are, because you are there, and the disease is tricking you. It tricked me. It still does it to me. I still have to talk to it and say, you're not winning. I'm here, and I am not you, and you're not me. You're not the same thing. You are a thing that is happening to my body. Yeah, but you're not me.
And I think that's a really huge thing that helps shift in the healing, right? If you can start to tease yourself out from the sickness, because it does control your brain. And I think about Lyme has one of the highest rates of suicide for people who aren't aware of that. I get it. That thing was sort of talking to me about that stuff, right? And it's like, no, that's not really you, Anne. That's the sickness. Like, just slow down, take a break. But how many people aren't able to see it like that, or figure
their brains are just too inflamed? Maybe their brains are just too inflamed, or they've got too many co-infections and they just can't.
That's right.
It's heartbreaking. I mean, this year alone, we've had a lot of losses in the community and there's the ones that we don't know about too, because there's the people who were never even diagnosed.
I know.
They don't even know that they had Lyme, you know, and that's, it's just tragic, you know.
It is. And I somebody sent me something about, it was a podcast, and she's like, listen to this part at such and such, and I would have to go back and find it, but the podcast was talking about psychiatric disorders, and they did a map in the United States, and it was like a lot of them were coming out of the Northeast, and then they lay over the map of where ticks are most prevalent, and it completely lined up perfectly. And I was like, man, look, you know, it's like, that's, somebody needs to really like pay attention to this. And I often think too about homeless people. Yeah. Not all of them are having, you know, psychiatric issues, but sometimes I think a lot of them do. But what a susceptible population to this.
So vulnerable.
I have no idea what's going on. And, you know, it does scramble your brain. It completely turned me into a different person.
It totally does.
So, you know,
there's a lot of stuff that needs to be talked about. Actually, Lyme TV does beautiful work with that. They're doing a lot of work. They're actually located here. I'm in Maine, and they're located here in Maine. Okay. But they're a national organization, and they do amazing work to reach out to underrepresented populations, like the homeless, the most vulnerable, the homeless and children. So they go to schools, they deal with homeless population, helping people get educated, because they're such a vulnerable population. I mean, everyone's vulnerable when it comes to Lyme, but they're most. And recent immigrants as well, because they have no idea what they're walking into when they come to the United States. There's Lyme in every single state. So especially here in the Northeast, as we know, it's just devastating.
Yeah, that the homeless people, for whatever reason, is one of those things that haunts me. And my buddy does blankets for Hope here, and I've talked to him about it. I'm like, do you think you could spray? They donate blankets and beds and stuff. And I'm like, maybe we could spray the blankets with permethrin before they give them out or
It's not a
something,
bad idea.
Have to revisit that with him, but it's just been
Everybody's boot. If they, places that are doing stuff like giving away clothes to people, having everyone's boots sprayed with permethrin, wouldn't that be amazing?
I'm going to see about that too.
Actually, I'm thinking about that now too for an organization here who's doing amazing work. That would be so cool to be able to donate permethrin and make sure everybody's boots get treated first, and their boots and their blankets. That would go a long way. Yeah.
Just some kind of defense against it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But man, thanks for the good ideas there too. We could brainstorm and come up with
I know.
But I guess ultimately it's just more about getting the awareness out there, telling our stories like we're doing here, teaching people about this. And that makes me think too, if you don't mind, can you go through the symptoms that you had? Are you able to put those out there?
Yeah. The very first symptoms, I had no idea it was Lyme. It took several months before we realized what was going on, that there was something bigger going on. Like it all felt separate, like lots of different things. So my very first things were visual distortions and eye floaters. This all happened. I was in Iceland when this happened. I was celebrating my 50th birthday. Woohoo! What a way to celebrate. But I was having eye floaters, visual disturbances, and flu-like symptoms. Classic. And then within a week, severe back and neck pain, like so debilitating. I couldn't stand, sit, lie. Like I was like holding on to a table, just like for hours on end, trying to figure out where to put my body. And the doctors were just like, oh, it could be this, it could be that, go to physical therapy, that kind of stuff. Those were my first symptoms. And then it developed into just chronic back pain and neck pain for several months, and hip pain, like just joint pain in general. And then when I had sort of a tipping point event, which is common with Lyme disease, I think probably a lot of people don't know that if you're carrying a dormant disease, you can have like a traumatic event happen. It could be a physical, like a car accident. It could be an emotional thing, like a death. You have a tipping point event, and then the disease, you're weakened. Your immune system is weakened. Your nervous system is weakened. So the disease can kind of take over and just do what it wants to do, or do what they want to do, the disease is. So at that point, those symptoms continued, but then it became neurological, and I started having severe vertigo, like severe room spinning vertigo, and severe cognitive challenges, light sensitivity, noise sensitivity, lots of confusion, brain stuff. Then I started having neuropathy in my limbs, just excruciating pain, headache, migraines. It just goes on and on from here. Palsy and facial palsy for me comes and goes. It's much milder now, but it's still there. It's still like, if I took my glasses off, you would be like, oh yeah, look at your crooked face. It comes and goes. It's never completely gone. It's definitely better though. So facial palsy, urinary incontinence. I'm saying I have no shame about it, because it is symptoms that
it's a body.
I think a lot of people are like, you'll talk about that? I'm like, of course I'll talk about it. People need to know. It can lead to because literally it can attack every part of the body, right? So, and in the early days, Babesia was a much bigger problem for me. But I've really gotten Babesia, knock on wood, under control pretty much. But in the early days, I had a lot of, breathing issues and things like that, lots of like congestive kind of issues from the Babesia, skin stuff, rashes. I developed mast cell activation syndrome, so lots of histamine issues. It goes on and on, but those are the big ones I think that I can think of right now.
Thank you.
Probably pretty typical list, I think.
Those are some of the same, but a lot of different ones for me too. And so, that's the thing, is like, were there 100 different symptoms of Lyme? So
I think it's even more. I read somewhere that it was like 300 symptoms, and I was like, really? Then I think about it and I'm like, I'm actually not surprised.
No.
Because there's days, there would be days when I would wake up and I couldn't move my hands. I just couldn't move them. And I would, I would go to move my thumb and it would just snap. Like I'd have to like physically take my other hand and or my arm usually, and just sort of like push it into place. And I would just sit there for hours trying to get my hands to move, in some of the really bad days. And it's just, you're just like, really? But what fresh hell is this, to quote Shakespeare, right? Like, what fresh hell is this today? Like, what am I waking up to today? And then yet you go, other days you would go and have, it would be, everything would be calm, a little bit more calm maybe, or many things would be, and you'd be like, why? What is it? The weather? What is it? Is the moon? What is it? Because then there's also the parasites issue. Like we're much more susceptible to parasites. We become much more susceptible to almost everything, right? So you can also have horrible GI stuff. I've been blessed that I haven't had as much of that, but that's so common.
Yes, yes. And I often think, like, would you rather have the neurological kind, or would you rather have the physical body kind? Like, my brain was so broken and I hated it, but it's like I could still move. Towards the end, I started to have a lot of physical joint pain, but for the first 5 years, 6 years, I didn't have a lot of physical pain.
Was just neurological?
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, maybe it would have been better that my body hurt and my brain could work, because but it shouldn't have to be that at all. Like, we shouldn't
have to be any of it. All is terrible. For me, neurological is the hardest, but that's me. Yeah. It's just, I just feel, because I couldn't do my job anymore. I couldn't do the things that I loved. And I just felt, and I think that these diseases rob so much from you that no matter what, it's terrible. All of the symptoms are terrible. But for me, in my particular life, the neurological is harder. And it's just really hard to be dizzy all the time. It's really hard to sit here and talk to anybody, even when you want to, and just have everything moving. And you're always like trying to control that, it's exhausting. So, yeah.
Just seriously speaking, have you tried float tanks at all? Has that been something?
Float tanks are one of the few things I haven't done. And it's only because I have benign paroxysmal positional vertigo, which I'm actually dealing with this week, which is, it makes the crystals in my inner ears move. Okay. Floating is really hard for me for that reason, because I put my head in positions and the crystals move. So I actually had the crystals move yesterday, which is why I'm having a tough time today. I had to go to my vestibular therapist. That's like a weird one that a lot of people don't realize you can have with Lyme. It can affect your inner ears. It can affect your eyes. My vision has been severely affected by Lyme. So yeah. So anyway, float tanks have been, it's something I would love to do, but it's also tricky for me because of my head.
So I couldn't decide if it would be better or worse for you to feel that way. My mom has some vertigo. She doesn't do good laying down. Yeah.
Laying down is really hard for me. It's super hard. So I've done a lot of treatments where I have to lay down, and they're always really, really, really hard. And so floating for me right now feels terrifying.
Okay.
Which is sad. I mean, I loved floating, but for now it's not the best. I do a lot of other cool treatments though that are very helpful, like red light therapy and acupuncture and all kinds of other good stuff. There's so many things. We have so much available, right?
Thankfully.
Yeah, thankfully.
Noted. Okay. I wasn't sure if that was going to be good or bad, but I
know it's such a good therapy with so many people. It's wonderful.
Yeah. If it's the right person. And then can you talk about if there was like any kind of specific healing moments that you can remember, or when you knew that you were going to get better? Like, I don't know. Sometimes I can remember, I've mentioned it in the past, like I would see a hawk flying, or I would get a sign somewhere from what I consider God, and it just sort of let me know that I was like onto the right path of healing.
That's a really good question. And it's interesting because for me, it hasn't so far been anything like symbolic, like a hawk, which I think is beautiful. And I think those moments happen when you're open to them. And I think it's like, you've got to be open to that stuff. And I know you're like the queen of that. I love following you for that reason, because you're so good at seeing the signs. So for me, so far, it hasn't been so much the signs. I don't think. I'm saying that now, and later I'll be like, no, it was, remember? But for now, what I would say is it's been more of like an instinct, like a feeling, just like a little somewhere inside me, like something is changing. And I have one very distinct moment when I was actually in the middle of COVID. I was quite sick with COVID, but it was weird because COVID just felt like this strange layer on top of everything else. I didn't feel like it was penetrating. And that was exciting to me, because I felt like, oh, my immune system is actually doing the job. It's getting the job done. And my husband had it at the same time. So we were like healing at the same pace. And sometimes in some ways I was getting better faster, and he was having severe fatigue issues. He's very healthy normally. And so he was not healing as fast. As we went along, I started speeding, like kind of going ahead, and I was not as tired. And I was like, in the morning, I would get up and I would hop on my little stationary bike and pedal for 10 minutes with COVID. And I was like, this was something I was struggling to do before COVID. I couldn't do it for a long time. So I just knew there were these things that were shifting, and I wasn't feeling as fatigued as everybody around me with COVID was feeling exhausted. And I was like, I'm tired, but I'm always tired. I mean, I know fatigue, and like Lyme fatigue is like nothing else, because your brain, I used to say the robot's powering down. Language would stop. I'd go into like a fugue state. I couldn't understand what was being said to me or anything. I wasn't feeling that suddenly. And so I think that it was just, this is very recent. This was in March. So, this is just a few months ago. I started to feel this shift where I had a little bit of energy. So it wasn't like a distinct image or a distinct moment like that. It was more like a little feeling, little like something's going on. You've got to, and that was it. I had to be open to it though. I had to believe that was a shift. That was a real shift. That it's hard to believe in it. Like we were talking about, these diseases play tricks with your mind and make you feel like you're never going to get better and you're crazy. And no, you've got to find like, well, this is something I wasn't doing before, and suddenly I can do it. And it takes effort. It's not easy, but it's not the worst thing I've ever done either. And we're used to feeling like everything is the worst thing ever, So yeah, I think that's when it happened. I started to feel that. And every day since then, I've had at least a moment or two where I'm like, I'm healing. So I'm not there yet, but I'm healing.
That's great. Yeah. Beautiful. And I appreciate that, because everybody's experience is different. And so whatever it is that you feel, you tiny little thing, however it starts in the bottom of your toes, where good. Find more of that, focus on that feeling, and allow that into your life and to develop much more of that. And it helps to pull you along. And
absolutely. I think also, envision it, see it growing, watch it happen.
Right. That's right. And you also said another very important word, believe.
Absolutely. Whatever. And this isn't, I'm not talking religion here. I'm talking a kind of faith that is, whether it's in yourself, whether it's in a higher power, I don't care what the belief is in, but ultimately it has to be a belief in healing.
That's right.
Whatever is your belief system or your values or whatever, ultimately comes down to believe in healing. And I'm still in the journey. So this is not BS. This is absolutely, and I know it's not from you either. We've been here. And so we know that it's very hard to have this faith. This is a faith that it takes every ounce. It's the hard, I don't know anybody else's life, but for my own life's been full of lots of ups and downs like anyone's. This is the hardest fight I've ever had to fight, by far, like leaps harder than anything else I've ever had to fight. So to have that faith, it's easier said than done, but if you can, and if you can't, there's one easy thing to do. You just reach out. Reach out.
Yes.
You reach out and you do it again and again and again. And if you have to do it every day, do it every day.
Yes.
Every single day. It's just a discipline of like, I can't do this alone. Okay, I'm going to reach out. It can be a total stranger that you see on Instagram. That's why Instagram is so great, because we can do that. It can be a total stranger whose post speaks to you. Look up hashtag Lyme disease warrior, Lyme don't kill my vibe. Like there's so many hashtags, right? But just look up anything that has to do with these diseases, Bartonella, whatever, and find somebody and just go DM them. Because I know I am always open to somebody DMing me. I don't care who they are. If they want to talk about their challenge, I'm right here. I know you are too. I'm right here, because that's how I get my faith that I can get better.
That's right.
It's digging deep. It's like a deep dive.
Yes. And you're making me think, I had a very clear thought of like radical belief, right? Like radical belief. I just read the book Radical Remission that was recommended to me, but now I'm also thinking about radical acceptance and what we were talking about earlier with Tara Brach. And I really do want you to talk a little bit more about that as well for our listeners. I'm familiar with Tara Brach, but I don't know, many people might not be. If you could share more about that thought, please.
For me, so this is my interpretation of acceptance, and radical acceptance is we have to practice it when you're in a place where I just, of course, got something in my eye.
Yeah, so I was like, wait, no, it's not time to cry.
No, but I think the idea that accepting where we are in a given moment, and it could be the dark moment, it could be the really deep dark moment in the middle of the night when you're like, oh, I can't do this anymore. And then what I try to do, because I have countless I can't even count. I have no idea how many of those I've had, hundreds of those nights, hundreds of those days, but the nights are often the hardest for many of us, right? For anybody, any human. So it's that moment where you take a deep breath, and maybe you take 5 deep breaths, and you let out a long exhale. Try to let that parasympathetic kind of take over a little bit, get out of fight or flight, and just go, okay, I accept. I'm here. This is it. This crappy thing that's happening right now, I accept it because it is the reality. And to fight the fact that it's the reality is going to get me nowhere. It's actually just going to keep me in fight or flight. It's going to keep me like this, right? It's going to keep me so wired and keep me angry at myself, angry at my body, angry. No, I'm here in unity with my body. We have a fight to fight. I have to accept that fight and go forward. So it was funny because I was mentioning to you earlier that I remember the first time talking to my husband. We were taking a Tara Brach course on compassion, and she talked about acceptance at one point, and he was just like, I just don't buy that, because if you're I said, I'm accepting where I am right now. And he was like, no, you've got to fight. I said, oh, I am fighting. That doesn't, acceptance and fighting the fight and trying to get better are not mutually exclusive. They can go hand in hand. And in fact, one needs the other. I can't go forward unless I have clearly defined my boundaries, to clearly define what it is I'm dealing with it and accepted it. And now I know, okay, this is my fight. I take it on. I'm taking it on. I accept it. And here I go. And that acceptance, and you were talking earlier about like how did you know you were getting better? It's not how I knew I was getting better, but it was how I knew I could get better, was when I said that to myself, if that makes sense. And it's not like a once and done thing. You don't just do it and go, I accept. It's because it's so hard. It's like the faith that we were talking about, right? It doesn't end. You have to keep doing it because you'll still doubt. Doubting is, whatever your belief system is, doesn't really matter. We all have stories in our faith systems that teach us about doubt, and doubt is part of the process, right? Doubt is okay. It's important. We've got to experience, I don't think I can do this. I don't want to do this. Screw this. I'm not doing this. We've got to do that. And then when we go, okay, I hate this. This is terrible, but I'm going to embrace it, because knowing what it is, looking it right in the face and knowing what it is, I can now go, this is how I'm going to go forward. I can find a pathway forward. And I'm doing that partly by reaching out to other people too. That's helping me with the acceptance. So I don't know, does that make sense?
That very much so.
It's a weird concept because it sounds counterintuitive, but it's not. Once you do it, it's like freeing. It's a release. I'm not like, I'm gonna, I'm like, no, I accept it and I hate it, but I accept it. I accept it.
I accept it. I see it for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And as we had talked about too, it's like you stop fighting self and you start fighting the sickness, right? Like you're not fighting yourself anymore. When we're able to accept self and where self is at, then that sort of gives us space and peace within that we can allow more healing to come into us as well.
Yeah.
And you just have to be willing to like let go. And I like picture someone like holding on for dear life, and it's like, no, I'm not this person. I'm not sick. I'm not doing this. And you just kind of let go and you're like, okay, I accept that this is where body is right now. I don't have to accept that I'm going to stay here, but I'm going to accept where I am, and I'm going to continue, as you say, go forward again.
Yeah, and this is what I'm living right now. And there's a big distinction between that and I am not the disease. This is a thing that is happening. And that's why it's not giving in. It's not giving up. It's not a relent, like a relent all power kind of thing. It's I know that this thing is happening. I don't want it to happen. It feels terrible, and yet it's happening. So how can I move forward in a way that gives myself some grace also, honestly, it gives people around me some grace too, because it's a hard thing to live with for everyone. So it gives us grace. It gives us a sense of purpose also, and a shared purpose, because this is the reality. And there's actually a moment in, we were just talking about those films, in I'm Not Crazy, I'm Sick, where there's a family, it's really beautiful, it's done really well, where there's a family that's really dealing with this with their daughter, their grown daughter, and she's been sick a long time. And the father is just struggling. He's not accepting it. And bless him, because who wants to accept it, right? But the mother is, and the mother's like, we need to fight this fight. I've got to fight this fight for our daughter, and our daughter's got to fight this fight. And if you can't, you have to leave now. And he does. He leaves, and he gets it, because he can't yet accept it. He can't yet do it. I think it took him leaving and getting a little bit of perspective and looking in on it to accept it. So it's not only about the person who's sick accepting, it's about the people around them. And when the people around you can't accept it, and I certainly have experienced that, and I totally get it. Who wants to accept it? But when they can't, for me, that was when I said, okay, bless you, I love you, and maybe we'll meet again on the other side of this. And if we don't, that's okay. It's okay. I'm not mad at anybody who couldn't be here for it, because it's horrible, but also the ones who did accept, and the ones who are here, they're a part of why I'm here. They're a part of why I'm still doing it. And so the acceptance is like a process, and it's also something you can welcome others into, and it can be something we do together. It gives it a lot more grace, and there's more moments of lightness. And like, I don't know if you had this experience, but I had times when I looked at my life and I was like, I don't think I've laughed in like months. Like, I don't think I had cracked a smile. And I didn't even know how anymore. Like, somebody would tell me a joke and I was just like, who do you think you are? Like, I don't want to laugh. So like, being able to just a little bit, and letting life be some kind of normal every now and then, a little bit of just ordinary stuff, felt really good, So I definitely invite other people into it if I can, and some people can't, and that's okay. But for the people who don't have anybody in their life who can, that is especially important. Then reach out to people who can, find new people, find people like us who can.
That's right, because there will be people that will understand you.
Always.
If you're alone, if you have people with you, whatever, you can always connect with somebody else too that's going to just understand you.
I can't, the number of total strangers I've become, like you, like we've become connected because we get it. There's no explanation. There's no judgment. There's no explanation. We don't have to have the same beliefs, politics, nothing else has to matter. It's just about, we're on a journey together and we respect each other. So I feel like that about every single person I've met in the Lyme world, so many people that we would never have met otherwise. And I'm so just overjoyed, because it's opened my perspective of other people. It's opened my mind up a lot more too, which is, I don't want to know if I want to use the word gift. It's like a gift of this disease, but it is well, to me, it is a gift. And I know when I say it, some people kind of go like, what? But it is a gift of this disease that I get to connect with people. And again, that is all part of the acceptance. It's all part of this journey.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could choose to go through the sickness and have nothing that's a gift or nothing that's good.
We could.
It's easy to do that, I'm sure. But it's not going to help you, and it's not going to help you get better, right? You really have to try to look at it, even if it's warped. Like, one of my questions is, what's the best thing that's happened to you as a result of getting Lyme? It's like, what do you mean, you crazy person? I know.
Well, let me think. There's just so many things, Anne. There's so many things that are good. There are actually, weirdly. Yes.
There are.
Seriously, it's weird. It's creepy. I'm not even all better yet, and I feel that way. Like, yeah. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I know exactly. Like, when you mentioned it to me earlier, you're like, what are the gifts? What are the good things? What's the best thing? And I'm like, honestly, it's going to sound so woo-woo. It's going to sound so goofy, but compassion. It's compassion. I know without a doubt, it's the first word that came to my head when you asked, because it's self-compassion. It's a sense of caring about, not hating my body for like, oh my God, I hate you. Why are you so sick? No. Oh my God, look at you doing this. you can't even move and yet you're still trying, whatever. And then it sounds so goofy. It's true, like having compassion for myself, having compassion for the people around me who are, suffering from caregiver fatigue and, just trying to do the best they can, and sometimes losing it and sometimes doing amazing things. It's just also hard, right? But then also having compassion for everyone around me, like others, people I don't even know, just teaching me, it's taught me compassion, it's taught me an understanding, because you have to do that deep, I was talking about the deep dive, you've got to do the archaeological dig, you've got to go down for this. It's not only a physical archaeological dig of like getting through the layers of disease, it's a deep dive through to self, because there's always trauma involved, there's always dark, yucky stuff we don't want to look at. So if we can do it and do it with grace and compassion, then we learn more about ourselves. That's really amazing. I like myself more than I did before I got sick. Who would have thought? Amazing. I think I love myself more than I did when I got sick. And other people, I just love other people more. I feel I have no interest in engaging anymore in gigantic arguments with people about things that are ugly and awful and that are going to get nowhere. I love to have a debate. It's fun to talk with people, but we're in a time in the world that's very divisive, and I don't feel that. I feel like all I want to do is unite and connect. And I give that credit to having these crazy diseases. I really do. And I think it's, you can't lie in a room alone day after day after day, struggling to utter words or look at a word or do anything, literally anything. Like you're like, oh, maybe I can make it to the bathroom. You can't do that for days and days and days and then like not start to have compassion for other people who are suffering and recognize that suffering is a common theme for all of us. It's something everybody experiences in their own way. And I think it's easy to not see it when you're well. You can see it and go, oh, those poor people or whatever, but it's not the same. And I'm not saying, oh, people who get Lyme are better than nothing like that. I'm just saying, if you're open to it, it's incredible what it can give you as a gift of caring and just feeling compassion.
Yes, thank you for that, because it's a hard lesson to learn. I'm not sure if we'd all sign up and say, yeah, teach me compassion. I want this experience to teach me that.
No, definitely not. No. But at the same time, I say that, and I still don't want anyone else to get this disease, because I don't want other people to suffer, and I don't want everyone's going to, like we said, everyone's going to suffer, but in their own ways and different things. But this particular set of diseases that come with being, bitten by a tick, are so horrific. And the way that you can, if you're a woman, you can pass it to your child, or you can pass it to your lover, or you can, if you're a man, for anybody, you can pass it to your lover, you can pass it to other people in your family. And so you'll see whole families getting it. And it's just, no, I don't want anyone to go through it. And yeah, I also recognize that I'm gaining gifts from it. So it's not, it's because I'm writing a lot right now, actually. And I know you were talking about creativity. Creativity for me has been how I've gotten through this in a lot of ways. It's been how I found my belief. It's been how I found that sense that I can keep doing this, is by staying creative, even when I couldn't write. So I would just record my voice, and then I would do voice to text. And voice to text when you're trying to write something serious is ridiculous. It's just so bad. It's so funny. But I would still do it because I was determined. I was like, I've always written. This is who I am. I can't not do this. So it was nonsense and gobbledygook for years. But then, like the last year or so, it started to get more like my writing. And then it didn't just get like my writing. It became something. All this crazy brain inflammation and all this stuff that's happening changed my creative process in some ways that surprised me. So I'm writing a lot right now, and it's not memoir or anything like that. It's I don't know what it's going to be yet, but it's going to be a book, and it's really fun to write it because it's different from anything I've ever done, and it's only because of Lyme. And I'm grateful.
Another good gift, yes. And I will ask you this too, as a last thought. Would you trade it?
I'm glad you asked such easy questions, Anne.
You have too beautiful a mind to waste. I can't ask you simple questions. I need to ask you tough questions here.
Would I trade it? My honest answer is yes. Yes. Yeah, I don't want it. I don't like it. I'm going to be totally honest. I would trade it, but I also, since it is what I have, I accept it. Like, yes, I would. I don't want anybody else to have this. I don't want to have it either. I don't want anybody to ever have this again. Sadly, there are going to be a lot of people who have it. We both know 500,000 people at least a year are getting it just in the US. So a lot of people are going to get it. What's the word I want? Not recognize. My life before this I recognize it, but it's completely foreign. Like, it's a different, that was a long time to be on the planet. I was on the planet 50 years before I got this. So like, it's a long time, and it was a good life. I'm grateful for it. And it would have been great to just keep going along on that path. But on the other hand, there's something really magical about what's happening. So would I trade it? Probably yes. But I also am kind of weirdly grateful for some of it. It's a very mixed answer. I don't have a good answer for it. I have an honest.
There is a good answer.
Messy. It's messy. How I feel
about is best. And I'm curious if I ask you this again in a year.
Oh yeah, we have to talk about that again in a year. Ask me that question again. I'm curious. Would you trade it? Can I ask you? Is that breaking the rules?
No, yes, please ask me anything. Of course, please. I think honestly now I would not. Because it's made me who I am. I don't want anybody to suffer through this, but one thing I feel I've learned about human existence is there is going to be suffering. It's a lot easier for me to say I wouldn't trade it now that I'm through it, because I feel the things that I've gained out of it, the process, the evolution that my soul has gone through has been one of the most beautiful things that I could have witnessed.
So amazing.
But it sucked. And it was a hard way to learn some of the lessons that I did, but I wouldn't have learned them without those experiences. And sometimes that gives me peace, knowing we know we don't want anybody else to go through this, but we know, unfortunately, that there are a lot of other people that are going to experience this. And I can give myself some comfort, or at least the ability to breathe through that, by recognizing what I did gain out of it as a soul and what I have been able to accomplish more so within myself because of that experience. So then I can say, okay, hopefully that person has the same beautiful transformation as I did, or even greater, and they're able to look at it like I did when it's all over and done.
I think that's beautiful.
So I'm kind of like, okay, good. It's gonna better them, if that's not another warped perspective, to be kind of like excited for them. But
it's true. It's true. Like, when you can actually see it in someone. I love that you said it that way, because you can see it in someone who's changing because of it. You can see the shift happening, and it's exciting to see. It's also incredibly painful. So when you said when it will happen if I ask you this in a year, I want to know too, because I probably will feel differently if I get through this to a different place. Which I think I will.
When I was just about to say, now listen, Gigi, when you get through this.
When I get through this to a different place, I think I probably will have it will be easier to feel like you're saying. I think right now it's very mixed. It's all like, there's things I'm very grateful for, but I'm also still like, no. But I also don't want anybody else to have it, and that keeps coming back to that. So I'm like, why don't I want anyone else to have it if I gain so much from it? So it's a really good question, and it's a really hard one to answer. But I know that I'm incredibly grateful for the compassion that it's given me for myself and for other people. I'm so grateful for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I can say, from watching you, it's been very beautiful. And to see you where you are now that's the beautiful part when you come out, like, I mean, it's hard. I watch you when you're in, I see you laying there making your videos, trying to talk, trying to function, doing what you're trying to do just to exist. I see you there, and it's hard to see there. That part's not necessarily the beautiful part, but like watching you evolve and watching you come out and be sitting up again and be able to take a walk on the beach and, you know, be able to function and do laundry. Like, that's really beautiful. Like, what an inspiration you are. What an amazing soul. You have suffered and hung on to life for so long, and look where you are. It's amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah. And where you are just blows my mind. It's so stinking cool. And you've been huge. Like, you have encouraged me so many times. Like, you've just sent me these little notes on my posts and stuff. You've just been like, you can do it. You're amazing. And like, that is everything. And I think we have to, you know, pay it forward and keep doing that with other people who are fighting the same battle. And I know we always talk about it like a battle and fighting and like these warrior terms. And I think to other people that might sound kind of awful, but there is a part of it that is that. There's also a part of it that's very beautiful and very, I don't know, full of grace. And so, and those things, again, like we keep talking about things that feel contradictory, yet they coexist. And that is kind of life with these diseases. They're very contradictory, yet all of these things can coexist at once. And that is tremendous. It's a tremendous thing to learn about and to understand and to kind of keep exploring. And I know the other thing I wanted to say, the last thing I wanted to say about that, you were talking about like, what has it given you? Like, what gift? I would also say, you know, I've always been a really curious person. I think you have too. I suspect this about you very much. I'm really, really, really curious about everything. I'm always asking a million questions. You know, I can see the books on your shelf. We want to know, right? We want to learn. And I think if you can stay curious throughout this entire process, even like those days when you're not functioning at all and you're barely alive, and I really am not like exaggerating, like you're barely alive, you're barely existing, you barely have a pulse. There's been many days for myself when I barely had a pulse, and the doctors were like, oh, you're just really not doing well, you know, and you're put there, you're in the hospital or whatever. Even on those days, if you can stay curious about what it is that's happening and keep asking questions and keep going forward. And if one treatment doesn't work, ask questions about another treatment, try that treatment, do this thing. If you don't have enough money, ask, go look for it, because nobody has enough money to treat this disease unless they're a billionaire. No one on the planet, unless they're a billionaire, has enough money to treat these diseases. They're expensive. So you got to find creative ways to do it, and don't stop. Just be really just relentlessly curious. That's been a huge gift to me to learn. Not only am I curious about things that are easy to be curious about and fun to be curious about, I'm curious about this mess too. This really hard stuff. And it's part of the process for sure. I just wanted to make sure I said that, because I think that and creativity, which go hand in hand, that's what's kept me going.
Yes. And I appreciate you calling that out. I've not necessarily thought about it so specifically that way, but I'm an incredibly curious person.
Yeah, I can tell.
Funny things about things that I've done that people are like, why would you stick your hand in that if you didn't even know what it was? I'm like, well, because I was curious. I want to know what it felt like. Sorry.
What did it feel like?
Not gonna die. Okay. But yeah, and you know, the thought to like constantly research and read, but I had to get to a point where my brain could do that again.
Yep.
When I was so sick, I couldn't read, I couldn't watch TV, I couldn't anything.
Yep.
I could talk to people. I might not remember it, but I could talk to people. I could write some stuff down and maybe look back at the notes, or and slowly I would start listening to books.
That's what I do. Yeah.
Things, trying to like grasp once the brain again started to fire a little bit more. Now ultimately I can read them up to like a book a week. I'm voracious about reading and feeding the brain and getting information in there, but it took a while to make it work again. But that is a good trait to have through this, is to remain curious, to ask questions, to not, this is a place where you don't want to accept sometimes when doctors tell you that it's just stress, or you're never going to get better, or you're not really feeling that or whatever. Like, that's the place where you're like, no, I need to ask questions. Fine. I need to talk to this person over here. They got better. What did they do that was different? What, you know, and start to just build your network that way, because You're never going to get better if you just accept what they tell you, in my opinion.
Never. Yep. And so mmany doctors will dismiss you, and so many doctors will say, the test was negative, you're fine. Don't accept it.
No,
Don't accept it.
Because we know better. And that's what's when you start peeling back what this disease really is. It's like, you've got to ask questions. You can't just accept anything here, because it's such a behind the curtain, such a mess of political nonsense, medical nonsense, misunderstanding, whatever it is that comes down to. And so what looks on the surface like an innocuous type of thing turns into something that's really much more of a 10-headed monster that you didn't see coming. And so you have questions.
Yeah, and there's not going to be a lot of people out there running marathons for you and raising funds. You got to find the ways to do it. So do it. Don't. And a girlfriend of mine did a GoFundMe for me last year, and I said, "Oh God, I can't do that. I can't do that." And she was like, "You need to do that. You need to keep going." And I was really grateful she did it. And you have to be able to not be proud about it. If you need the funding, seek it. Everybody has to seek it. I try to help other people seek it because someone helped me seek it. And we got to keep doing that, because there's no way to fight this without finding answers, finding funds, because there's no insurance company is going to be like, here's your money for treatment on a silver platter. No one's doing that with this disease. It's not like having basically any other disease.
No.
And I don't like to compare, but it's true. It's just not the same thing. And so you've got to stay completely open to things you never thought you would. Staying curious, staying humble, all those things have got to be part of it. They just have to be. But always trusting in your gut when your doctors are saying something that doesn't make sense to you. If it doesn't add up, it doesn't add up. It's not going to ever add up. If it doesn't add up now, it never will. So keep going. Yeah, it's huge.
Right. And I do appreciate you pointing out, because I think sometimes people aren't. I think we're just so trained to put our faith in the doctors and just be cool with things, that it feels almost foreign for us to question them.
Absolutely. They're authority figures when we're growing up.
Yeah.
It's not that there's not great doctors. There are.
Of course.
And a lot of them are great at other things too. And they're not necessarily trained in Lyme because they're not taught in medical school. So they will look at you like you're a lunatic, completely out of your mind. In many cases. So you've got to find those doctors who do treat Lyme and who understand it, and who understand it is so complex. Like you said, you pull back that curtain and it's like, it's a mess back there. It's a messy disease or set of diseases. It's a messy political thing. It's a financial, it's all those things. And you don't want to look, and yet you have to. You got to look and you got to pick through the wreckage. You just got to pick through it and find the actual answers, and not be afraid of that, because it's very ugly and very weird back there behind that curtain.
Incredible.
And then you see those documentaries like we were talking about, and you go, really? How is this happening today in 2023 in the United States or anywhere? How is this happening? But yet it is. It is.
I don't know, the way they explain how it all works, and the testing and the inadequacy with it. And it's like, if people understood this, I don't think it would be like this, but people don't understand until you don't get it till you get it. That's a sad thing. You don't get it till you get it. And then you get it and you're like, what do you mean the specialist is $550 an hour? What do you mean that's not insurance? Like, well, I mean, I went to a nurse practitioner. I think I got a deal at $550 an hour. I know some of the doctors are like $1,200 to $1,500 an hour. And that was years ago. God knows what those rates are up to by now. And
I know one of the neurologists I went to, the Lyme neurologist I went to, I went one time, it was $2,000. And that was the only time I ever went. It's just not worth it for me. I'm like, no, I'll stick with my little hometown, Lyme doctors. They're good. And they will encourage me to keep staying curious and keep fighting. And so you find the people who work for you within your budget. I occasionally veered outside of my budget, and sometimes it was worth it and sometimes it wasn't.
Yes. And then usually, whether it was or wasn't, I was usually leaving those appointments just bawling my face off, trying to come to grips with like, how am I going to pay for this? I don't know. Let me go get a new job. Let me go get a second job. Oh, I'm going to walk dogs so I can have some extra money. And you do what you do to try to figure out ways to make it work.
You do anything you have to make it work.
And thank God I could work. Like, I think about people who can't work, right? Like, what about those people who can't work?
I couldn't work. I still can't work. I can't wait till I can work again. Like I think that's the other thing. People think that you're lazy. And I know that they show that a lot in the documentaries. Families think that their loved ones are lazy. It's not laziness. They're not capable. I was not capable. I'm still not yet. But as soon as I am, I can't wait. I can't wait.
You're on your way.
Get me back.
You're well on your way.
Thank you so much for talking about all this stuff. This is amazing.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you here and to have some time to share your story and to let people know a little bit more about, again, what it looks like in the middle to the end, right? Like, because I see you and I see you're getting there, and I see you as a whole healed being, and I know you get there. And that's what we just got to keep picturing this, right? Like the best service I can do for you at this point is to see you as a whole healed human.
Thank you. Thank you. That's everything. I can feel it. Thank you for the energy. I need it. And it's really helpful to know that.
Yes. Yes. But we're always connected. And if you ever need anything, you know that I'm here. But I think about when I put those little cheers or whatever it is, I did it. So guess what? So can you.
Yeah.
That I have no doubt about. Like, that's where my commitment is like, I'm just a human being just like you. I did it. You can do it.
You do it too. So, yeah.
I know you will. I know you will. You believe. That's really the big difference, is having that belief and commitment to self.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Keep going. Absolutely. I'm excited to, again, we're going to revisit this in a year, and I can't wait. Maybe we can do face-to-face and you can go for a walk together and go out to
my gosh, that would be amazing. That would be so cool. I would love it.
It will be.
We'll find some 4-leaf clovers together.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. I haven't found one today. 5 and a 4 today.
Amazing. So,
sending you lots of luck and love. And I'm really grateful for this, Gigi. This was really huge, and I appreciate you so much. And I know that maybe it wasn't the easiest to get through all this information, but it's so valuable. And
thank you so much for asking me. You're amazing.
Yep, you're amazing too. And I love you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks. We'll talk soon.
Definitely. Okay. Have a good night. Thank you. Bye.